Welcome to the Retire with Purpose podcast. As always, this is your host, Casey Weade, and today we've got a different type of guest joining us. We won't be covering finance necessarily. We're going to be focusing on fitness with Mr. Jim Owen. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Casey, good morning. How are you? How are things in Fort Wayne?
Things are extra chilly here in Fort Wayne. It's about 20 degrees outside, and we're trying to avoid the snow. So I'm just trying to stay warm. How about you?
Well,
Where are
I
you,
grew up in Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, but I live now in Austin, Texas, and we have a heat spell going on down here, at least for today.
Well, I can't quite imagine. I actually just got back from New York City, and it was cold there too. So I wish maybe my next travel can be down your way.
It'd be great.
It'd be great for me too. It's always nice to get out of the cold winter here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So, Jim, I've got to kick things off by asking something about you that I read. Now, this may not be true. Maybe I heard it incorrectly, but when I came across it, I was absolutely intrigued. I understand you're 78 years old. Is that correct?
Well, I prefer to say I'm 78 years young.
Well, I like to say that as well.
That's what they tell me. That's what my driver's license says, 78. I don't feel 78, but that's what my driver's license says.
Well, a lot of people play golf and they say they're shooting their age, right? You're 75. Can you still shoot your age? And you're doing that in push-ups, it would seem. I heard that you do not just 50 push-ups at a time, but you do sets of 50 push-ups at 78 years young.
Well, when I started on this exercise journey, I was 70 years old. And my first day in the gym, Casey, I literally could not do one push-up. Not a real push-up. And so I now do, 3 sets of 50. I don't do this every day because it would kill your shoulder. But what this goes to show you, because I'm not that athletic or I'm not coordinated particularly. If I can do this, anybody can. So the kind of secret of this whole thing is just slow, steady progress. Do one push-up. Well, maybe next week I can do 2. And that's what I've done. So when I say I do through the 50, I didn't do that it took me probably, 5 years, 6 years to do that. And now I'm where I need to be. I don't do this every day, but at least once a week, usually on Friday, maybe Monday, I'll do the push-ups, and I frankly enjoy it. It's not like a chore, but believe me, on day one, my trainer said, Jim, let's do 5 push-ups. I said, 5 push-ups? I can't do one. He said, well, try it. And I did. He said, you're right. He said, we got some work to do. So I just kept at it. And so one of the, quote, secrets, if you will, of exercising and fitness and that kind of stuff, getting in shape, whatever you want to call it, is just setting reasonable goals, long-term goals, and then setting short-term goals. So my short-term goal was never, I want to do 50 push-ups. It was more, gee, if I could do 5 push-ups, that'd be great. So very short-term goals I can. If I just work at this next month, maybe I can do 3 or 4. And that's how it happened. All of a sudden you wake up one day and you're doing 25. And then so it's a very interesting thing. There's no overnight secret. There's no special exercise that the magazines talk about. And it's just more of I'm kind of an old-fashioned guy doing I do basic stuff, Casey.
Well, sometimes we get intimidated by that, I would think, as we say, well, this guy's doing 50 push-ups. I'm never going to get to 50, and so I'm never even going to get started. But it's those SMART goals that you're setting that are, specified, measurable, attainable, reasonable, that have helped you get to where you're at.
Yeah, and I would say it took probably, again, let me just kind of back up here. When I turned 70, I was in terrible shape. My back, I had chronic back issues. I mean, literally lying on the bathroom floor with agony. That's how bad it was. Both my knees were shot, and my right rotator cuff was frozen. If you can imagine this. And I was probably 20, maybe 25 pounds overweight. I wasn't fat, but I was just overweight. Uncomfortable, let's put it that way. And now I'm in the best shape of my life. I weigh 155, and I weighed 205 in high school.
Wow.
And I weighed
now you were a
205
bodybuilder
when I was midlife.
right?
Well, bodybuilding. I did weightlifting when I was in high school. And Casey, I'd always thought I'd always framed exercise or fitness under bulking up. I don't know where the heck it came from, but I always thought it's bulking up. And of course, when you think about it that way, you're lifting, quote, heavy, whatever that means. Typically, it's barbells and that kind of stuff. CrossFit does this. They quote, bulk up. And now I don't think about how much I lift. It doesn't really matter to me what the actual weight is. I'm more interested in the movement itself. And to your many readers, listeners, I just want to encourage them, substitute the word exercise, which can be like a 4-letter word to some people. Like, I don't exercise. This is not me. The gym, that's not for me. Think about it in terms of movement. Think about when you were a kid. You just moved, and that's how I think about it. And the reason that it's the first year or two is tough when you're trying to get more fit, Casey, is because you're not used to the movement. So I was a couch potato, and my job involved travel. I spent my entire career, 35 years, in the investment world. That's all I know is managing money for a fee. And some people would say I don't know much about that, but I was lucky. And the truth is, the wind was at my back for about 18 years in the great bull market. And if the game was just be in the market, and you did pretty well. And some did better than others, but I got lucky, and I was a partner, Casey, in 3 different firms, all of which we sold. And so I became, financially independent about 10 years ago. And I've always been very goal-oriented. I just wasn't happy if I didn't have goals. But I'm now more into purpose. You say, well, Jim, what's the difference? Well, a goal is something that's, everybody's got goals. Yours, could be to finish your education, start your own business, save up for retirement, whatever it may be. A purpose is a much deeper concept or theme. And a purpose means this is how I want to be remembered, or maybe this is how I want to make my mark on the world. Okay, or this is how I want my children, my friends, my family to think about me when I'm not here. And that's what I call purpose. And it can be anything. But my purpose, in 2004, I had written a couple of investment books, one of which did real well back in, it's been 30 years ago, called The Prudent Investor. Did real well. And I've always liked writing. And I was so dismayed back in the early 2000s. I looked around at the world and said, what has happened to the great industry that I spent my whole career in? So I used to be very proud to have my wife say, my husband, Jim, is in the investment world. I was proud of that. But I wasn't so proud back in those days when every single day there was a new, you can remember, Casey, a new corporate scandal.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, today it's WorldCom. Tomorrow it's Enron. Like every single day there was something. And I wondered, what the heck has happened to this world? It's like it's upside down. And I don't want to say that we're friends, but I had a chance to meet Chuck Schwab, who's an amazing guy, one of the really great guys of the business. And I said, Chuck, why have you been silent? Why didn't you speak up? He said, Jim, I didn't want to put a target on my back. I thought that was interesting. And so you don't want to be Mr. Ethics, so to speak, when you see other people, doing misdeeds, because then you become a target. And I said, well, to myself, I am going to speak up. I'm going to do it through my writing. So I wrote this book called, quote, Cowboy Ethics. So where did the name come from? Casey, I have no idea. It popped in my head. But it was actually the whole idea came from a movie that Kevin Costner did called Open Range. And it was the story of Kevin and Bob Duvall. I know Kevin, not that we're friends, but I lived in Santa Barbara for 15 years. And Kevin, that's where Kevin lives, that plus Aspen. And the movie was about two cowboys who were pushing cattle over the open range. And they got set upon by these town folk that said, we don't like grazers, that kind of stuff. So, Casey, it was good guys and bad guys. And it took me back to my childhood. I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm now 78 years old, but I can remember like it was yesterday. Every single weekend, every Saturday afternoon, I would walk down to the local movie theater, and we didn't call it cinema in those days. And I saw a 30-minute reel, and you're too young to know what that is. But in those days, when you were a kid, a boy, we watched these 30-minute reels of Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and the Lone Ranger and Hopalong Cassidy. And there was something about those guys. I don't know what it was. Good guys wore, white hats. Bad guys wore black hats. So you could identify who the bad guys were. And there's never a theme or storyline to these movies. Just Gene Autry rides into town. There's always somebody, a woman, older woman with a worried look on her face. He said, "What's wrong, ma'am?" And she would point and she would say, "Gene, there's some bad guys at the end of town." And he would always say, "Don't worry, ma'am, I'll take care of them." And 30 minutes later, Gene is riding out of town. And the whole town people were, "Yay, Gene, yay, yay." Like a Roy or whoever it was. I thought, can you imagine everybody in town waving goodbye? What a feeling that must be. And I don't know what it was, but it just stuck with me. So when I saw this movie, it brought me back to my childhood. And I thought, right is right, wrong is wrong, good guys and bad guys. And you can say, "Jim, that is so sophomoric. It's almost, anti-intellectual." Yeah, but that's how the cowboys looked at the world. And there are no gray areas. And I tend to do the same thing. And everybody knows what's right in their hearts. Everybody knows what's wrong in their hearts. Now, doing it, that's something very different. But you do know what's right and wrong. And so it was called Cowboy Ethics. And I thought the book might sell 1,000 copies. You never know. It's a coffee table book. Easy to read. And the photographs were a guy named David Stecklin out of Sun Valley, Idaho. And Casey, he was one of the original Marlboro guys. So his photographs, whether you read the book or not, if you look at the pictures, you're going to say, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." So the book is very inspiring. Cowboys, cowgirls, sunsets, horses, all that stuff like that. And I think this book's pretty well written, but the truth is the photographs are what's going to draw you into it, and that's the emotional connection. The book sold 150,000 copies. It's still going strong. I did a 10th anniversary edition. And so a lot of what you hear about when you hear my name pop up, it's about Cowboy Ethics. And the Code of the West was never written down. I said, I didn't know that. Never written down. And I said, I'm going to figure this thing out. It took about a year to figure it out. I said, "Well, Jim, did you interview cowboys or ranchers?" No, not one. I read 100 Western books. I love to read, Casey. And I watched 25 of the classic Western movies, Red River and Lonesome Dove. I've seen them all a dozen times. My wife gets so tired of looking at this stuff. I never do. And so if Lonesome Dove is on TV tonight, whatever I'm doing, I'll cancel my plans and watch it again for the 25th time. But this book has resonated with people all over the country. It's amazing to me. And
with,
so,
with
and the,
150,000 copies that have sold, do you
yeah,
have any stories that you could share with us regarding what impact the book actually had in the financial industry, if you will? Because I would assume that this was mostly people in the financial industry that were picking up and reading about Cowboy Ethics.
that was in the beginning. But where this thing really took, and in Casey, I'll be totally candid about it. I don't know if you can really turn around a 50-year-old, business guy. I'm not sure at all. I like to think I've, changed some lives. But what I realized early on was if you want to make a real difference, you've got to look to the next generation. And so we partnered with Boys and Girls Clubs, 4-H, FFA, any number of high schools, middle schools, and we, in effect, train the trainers. Is what we've done. That's my leverage. So do I ever go into classrooms? Yeah, but I don't have any special skills with the kids. I'm more into providing content, which the Boys and Girls Clubs use and that kind of stuff. So we have trained well over 1,000 trainers to do Cowboy Ethics in the classroom. And that's my leverage, so to speak. And in all, we've reached easily 30, 40, maybe 50,000 kids around the country. Wow. It's amazing. And what I want to tell your audience is that it's always been a grassroots thing. That's been the secret of it. I don't need the government or somebody, putting their stamp of approval. I'm more interested in somebody in Biloxi, Mississippi, who emails me this morning. Again, we don't have marketing people. We don't do any of that stuff. But somebody from Biloxi or Tallahassee, Florida will email me today. I mean, I get emails every day saying, Jim, we want to incorporate this in the classroom. How do we do it? And I put them in touch with people that do that. And the next thing you know, we've got more people. And so it's been grassroots from the very beginning. I've been on the speakers thing for literally 10 years. So I was giving about 35 talks a year, and the problem that I ran into, it's not the speaking. I love the speaking part. I love connecting with an audience. It's the travel. It's getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going to the airport, missing your breakfast, late night dinners, sleeping in hotel and motel rooms, hauling bags around, and it darn near killed me, to be honest about it. And I'm not asking for mercy. I'm just saying I know how hard I work to promote this thing, all done through speaking and writing. And as a result, when I turned 70, that's why I was in bad shape. I was not exercising at all. And my diet, I don't say diet, my mouth, it wasn't really kind of my fault. But if you're at 11 o'clock at night and you're at some airport in Des Moines, Iowa, it's hard to eat healthy on the road. And you're not getting a good night's sleep. And so, anyway, these things all added up. And I'm really proud of what we do with Cowboy Ethics, how many people we've reached. It's still going strong. But I paid a real price, and the price was my health. So when I turned 70, Casey, I looked in the mirror, and I said, try to forget as long as I'll live. I said, oh, my God, I'm an old man. I saw an old man staring back at me. And I came across, Casey, one statistic that I want to share with you and your audience. And this is not my opinion. This is, I think it's Mayo Clinic that came up with this. And they said, out of a very large population, large being, I think, in this case, 100,000 people, okay? If you make it to 70, okay, that's a big assumption now. Statistically, out of a very large population, you're going to live another 15 years. And just ask any doctor, and they'll say, that sounds about right, even if they have not seen that statistic. And I looked in the mirror and I said, it can only go downhill. If I don't do anything at all, it's going to go down. If I look like this now, I'm an old man, shoulders were slumped. I was just haggard looking. I just looked weak. I said, can you imagine in 15 years when I'll be in either in a wheelchair, a walker, or something, or cane, I said, I got to do something. And I wasn't sure what that something was. I love to read. So anybody who was, spent time in the investment world, as I did, 35 years, we all love research. And whether it's good research, bad research, we love to read, and we draw our own conclusions. That's kind of what you do when you are in the investment world. And so I started reading about the stuff, talking to people, and I said, okay, what am I going to do? And I started off with a program of walking mainly. And on day one, I literally could not walk, Casey, 2 or 3 blocks without getting wet. Oh my, I'm in bad shape. I had aches and pains. And I tried walking, and I said, I'm going to set a goal. And Casey, this is so crazy, but I called this the 30-day challenge. And I said, I'm going to walk every day for 30 days. I'm not going to care about how far I walk, how fast I walk, just going to walk. And on day 1, maybe it was 2 blocks. Day 4, maybe it was, 5 blocks. But I worked up to about 30 minutes of walking. I cannot tell you how much better I felt. You wouldn't believe it. So to your listeners out there who may be worried about, gosh, I got aches and pains, I need to do something, start off with a program of walking. 1, it's easy. Anybody can walk if they're mobile. And 2, you don't need any equipment. You don't need fancy tennis shoes. Just whatever you got's fine. And don't worry about how fast you walk. Just get out and move. That's all. It's amazing. At the end of 30 days, maybe 6 weeks, you will look and feel better. And your friend will say, "What are you doing? You look great." Well, what you did, you got off the couch, and I was the original couch potato. Believe me. I said, Jim, do you have any certifications? Yeah, I was a certified couch potato for a lot of years. But getting up off the couch and simply moving, walking, it can be life-changing. And then I had a common sense, and talking to a physical therapist, I started to do some stretching. Nothing fancy. You say, Jim, what's the best stretch? What's the answer, Casey? The stretch that you actually will do. There's no best stretch. It's what will you do? I can tell you what I do, but then I've got my own issues to worry about. Everybody's got issues when they get older. And so all of a sudden, at age of 78, Casey, I have 0 aches and pains. None. Now, maybe I wake up on the wrong side of the bed kind of thing, but that's not the same as chronic aches and pains. That's what hurts. That's debilitating. Maybe I said, boy, I must have slept on the wrong side of the, but that's not the same as chronic. And so I got in exercising, call it fitness if you want, and it's been literally life-changing. And after I started walking and stretching, at the end of 6 months, I said, okay, I'm ready to take the next step. I said, what's that? I said, well, from what people I talked to, I need to work out in the gym. So I interviewed trainers, and most of them had no interest, Casey, in working with a person my age. I could tell they looked at me and they said to themselves, "There's nothing I can do to help this guy." It was in the faces. I said, "Well, do you have anybody my age?" No, not really. My oldest client is 60 or something like that. But I found this one trainer, and he had tattoos over. I've never seen a guy with more tattoos than this guy had. And Scott said, "Jim, I'll tell you what. If you do what I tell you to do, 1 year from now, you'll be in much, much better shape." And then he said something to me, Casey, I'll never forget, as long as I live. He said, "Jim, here's the key. What you do on days you're not with me," and I work out with Scotty 3 times a week doing strength training. He said, "What you do on your quote off days is as important, if not more so, than what you do when you're with me." And that was the big insight that changed everything. And so I now work out 1 hour a day. Maybe it's 45 minutes a day, 5, 6 days a week. And I cannot tell you the change. And the big change is not what you think it is. It's the mental change. It's really not physical. It's not that I'm Mr. America or I'm going to enter a body, Mr. Senior Austin or something like that. No, it's a mental thing. So when I turned 70, and I'm sure your audience some of your audience can probably identify with this. Casey, when I turned 70, I felt in my heart my best days were over. I feel today, honest engine, my best days still lie ahead. And that's the big win when you get involved with fitness. It's the mental part. It's not the physical part. It's nothing to do with how much you can lift or how many push-ups you can do and that kind of stuff. No, it's mental. And that is, I may get hit by a truck tomorrow. I may come down with a stroke next week. Maybe something awful may happen. All I can say is I'm in a better position to deal with that something, whatever it may be, than I am if I was sedentary and a couch potato. Then you're asking for trouble. So as it is, if I get, I hate to say it, cancer, or gosh knows what could happen to you when you get older, I'm better able to deal with it. And that's all I know. So I want to, and when you say purpose, now purpose now is to spread this message, and that's why we're on the phone today. I'm not selling protein powder. I'm not a trainer. Don't want to be a life coach. I'm a guy that wrote a book, which, by the way, Casey, National Geographic has never done a book like this. National Geographic published a book last year. It's called Just Move, J-U-S-T, Move, explanation. And I think that sums up what we're talking about. It's the idea of sit less and move more. And one thing I know for sure, and that is that sitting is the new smoking. There's no doubt in my mind that, so any of your listeners who have got aches and pains and, it hurts to walk across the room, you're probably sitting. And what the statistics will tell you, and this is I don't know, at a Cleveland clinic or someplace like that, is that the average American adult sits, and maybe you're guilty too, 8 to 11 hours a day. Think about that. And it's literally killing us. It's literally shortening our lives. And not to mention the aches and pains and diabetes and all kinds of bad stuff is happening because we're not moving. Now, your father, your grandfather, if you're from Fort Wayne, may have worked in the fields, may have, my mom had a tobacco farm of all things in Kentucky. Her family did. And so in those days, but they worked. They didn't have to go to the gym. Why would you want to lift weights? They work from sun up to sundown. And it's that physical labor outside that kept them, a lot, quote, healthier without all the medication than we are today. So the other statistic I'm going to throw out to you is that's shocking to me is that 40% of American adults, that's 40, Casey, are not just overweight, they are obese. Can you imagine this? So we have the distinction. America is the number one obese country in the world. Congratulations, America.
Yeah.
More obese than they are in any other country. So it's a combination of eating, the wrong stuff, fast food, whatever, plus just not moving. So I am selling something, and I'm trying to sell, an idea, if you will. Okay, and this is my passion. This is my purpose in life now. Okay, as long as I'm able, I'm gonna tell the same message. You got to get off the couch and do something. Now, I'm not telling you what you have to do, but you can swim, you can walk, you can row a boat. You can do, dancing, Zumba classes, whatever you want to do, but you can't just sit. And that's what we're all doing. Between watching TV, sitting in front of a computer, That's why we're all hunched over, so in front of a computer, riding in cars. So people who do work out will hop in a car, drive for 25 or 30 minutes to get to a gym, work out for an hour, drive back home, and all the good they've done, Casey, been wiped out. And then they go watch TV. Well, I worked out. I can watch TV. I deserve some rest. And so the answer is you got to get up. I'm standing and walking around as we talk. Why? Because if I sit very long, I get tight. Hips get tight, ankles get tight, and then the next day you pay the price. So I'm not selling protein powder. I'm not saying hire me as your trainer. You don't even have to buy the book. Okay, you go to the library and look at the book. I'm really proud of it. And right now I'm working on a documentary. I'm just started this little project of mine. I'm going to go out and find people, maybe 8 people, 9 people, who are not Mr. America or Miss America so much as they are people who are aging well. So the way I'm kind of framing this is the art, A-R-T, the art of aging well. And it goes way beyond exercising. That's just one part of it. Exercising is the foundation. Okay, it's only a part of it. The other parts are getting enough sleep, eating clean, however you want to describe it. I'm not a nutritionist. And Casey, by the way, in case your listeners are wondering, I have 0 credentials as far as fitness goes, none. I don't have a degree in kinesiology, or I'm not a doctor. I'm not a gerontologist. I'm just a guy who at 70 said, I got to do something. And I kind of figured out what that something was. And I just want to share it now with as many folks as I can. And that's why I'm so humbled and delighted to be on this program. And the profile of your listeners is exactly the profile I'm trying to reach. It's people, so if you're 20 or 30 or 40, you don't need to hear Jim Owen, or I have nothing to tell you except, good luck. But when you get older, and if you're 60, 65 years of age, if you're at retirement, near retirement, you could say you could have all the excuses of in the world when you're young. Well, I've got a career, I've got a family obligations, I've got this, I got that. But when you get about 65 or 70, hopefully you're in a position when you do have the time to devote to yourself. Because, oh, Jim, this is awfully selfish. You think an hour a day is selfish? I don't think so at all. I think it's just the opposite. Because I don't want to be a burden to my wife. We just had our 50th anniversary, Casey. I don't want to be burdening my wife or my kids. I want to live with my wife and be independent in our own, home, apartment, whatever, as long as we can, and keep our health. So we work out together, actually, whenever we can. And it's the fun factor of finding activities that you enjoy doing. And I'm the first to tell you, you don't have to, have a fancy gym membership. You don't have to pay for a trainer. There's all kinds of classes if you want that. You can, in the book, we talk about some basic exercises that are, old school stuff. That's what I do. I do old school stuff. That's all worked for me.
Well,
so I'm
Jim,
doing all this talking. I don't mean to go on and on and on, but you got me started. I'm sorry.
well, you've provided a tremendous amount of value already. You're answering all the questions that I basically have had for you. So you've covered all my questions. No, not really. But I think what you've exhibited and illustrated is that you're somebody for the last 20 years that has defined himself as a social entrepreneur, and this has become your encore after retirement. The last 20 years has just been able to get out there and share your wisdom, whether that's with the next generation or your peers, and better their lives. And that is something that author and past podcast guest Dr. Hans Fenzel and Rick Hicks, they talked about in their book Launch Your Encore, which is your purpose when you get to retirement is to share all these things and make the world a better place, pass it on to the next generation. And I think that's what you've done. And you know, one of my you talked a lot about motivation, and I think you really answered one of the questions that we had from one of our fans. Doug McCoy asked, what can an unmotivated couch potato do to get moving? And I think you answered that. And I think that's just listening to this podcast and coming to the realization of a lot of the statistics that you've shared. I mean, 28, and I read some of these statistics on your blog and in your book. 28 to 50% of baby boomers don't exercise at all. I was amazed by that.
We have 10,000 baby boomers, we'll call them that, turn 65 every day. Every day. So just for a second, put aside the personal side of this. Put aside Jim Owen and his, you know, what I'm doing and so on. Think about the health care cost in this country. So we spend $3 trillion a year plus. I think it's about $1.2 trillion. Would you believe, and your audience is not going to believe this, this is not from me, this is not my personal opinion, I'm just telling you what the facts are. These are government statistics. About 80% of that $3 trillion can be traced to lifestyle choices. Is that shocking or is that shocking? Roughly, now, it's true about 15% of somebody's health is traced to hereditary issues. Can't control that. So let's just take that out of the equation. It's about 15%, okay? But think about the costs that we're paying as a society for people who refuse to get off the couch. And think of what it's going to cost to you and your listeners, seriously. Mm-hmm. So when I see somebody who's overweight, I don't body shame them. I don't think, oh, you're a bad person or a bad character. I just think they're going to ask me, so to speak, to help with their medical bills when they're older. And at some point, you got to, how can I say it any more clear? We're going to go bankrupt as a country if we don't address this issue of prevention. And the truth is, nobody makes money when people are healthy. Think about that. The doctors don't make any money when you're healthy. The hospitals don't make any money. Big Pharma doesn't make any money. People only make money when you're sick. So what I'm suggesting is, let's take control of the aging process and control what you can. So it's, in case, again, this is real basic stuff. I'm a real simple guy. This is not sophistication at all. Do you smoke? Well, yes, sometimes. For God's sake, stop smoking, okay? Are you overweight? Yeah, probably 40 pounds. For gosh sakes, you got to do something, okay? And it doesn't mean now that you say, I'm going to lose 40, maybe you only lose 10. But you can do something to eat a little bit cleaner, a little bit less cheeseburgers and French fries every day kind of thing, okay? Do you do any kind of meditation? Yeah, you ought to. Something with whatever, it could be yoga, it could be whatever it may be, okay? So these are all real simple things that everybody can do. So the message is we need to, each of us, take control of the aging process. That's the message.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to motivation, and you've talked about this, but I know one of the tools that you said that you use is the power of visualization. And I know what this meant to me. When I was a kid, I was a huge fan of, all the action heroes, the Van Dams and all the Schwarzeneggers, and I'd put their picture on my mirror and look at that picture every day and know what I wanted to look like someday. And I still continue this, even just laying down every night before I go to sleep and imagining what I'm going to do in the gym the next day and walking myself through that process. How do you use the power of visualization to stay motivated?
That's a great question. And the answer is going to surprise you. Okay. I don't think I've talked about this more than once or twice, okay? But I've got a secret weapon on this visualization thing. On day one, when I was in awful shape, I bought a compression T-shirt. Do you know what that is, Casey?
Yes, absolutely.
And people looked at me and said, "Oh my, this guy has no shame. His fat is hanging over his hips."
I never thought about this being a motivating thing to put on a
yeah.
T-shirt.
He said, "This guy's got no pride at all." It was in their faces, and people would look away. They would look at me and say, "How could anybody do that to themselves?" Casey, that's all I needed. And I wore this T-shirt. I'm wearing a compression shirt right now. I started off with an extra, extra large, and now wear a medium. And now I've got a 6-pack. Well, it's a 4-pack. You call it a 6-pack. Well, and I said, now I can wear it with no embarrassment. But that was the only motivation. It was a visual. And people looked at me. I can remember like it's just, my friends said, "Jim, I don't mean to get overly personal, but do you have any idea what this you look like when you wear this stuff?" I said, "Sure I do. That's why I do it." And so extra, extra large, then it became extra large, then it became large. Now it's medium. I can't get much more lean than I am right now. I mean, without, and remain, fairly healthy. So, but that's, to be honest about it, that's the visualization. Every day I would go to the gym and people would just look at me almost too embarrassed to say hello. And I can tell you, it works.
And I think every picture that I've seen of you, every interview even that I've seen you do, you've been wearing a compression shirt. And now I know why you've been wearing that compression shirt. And I wonder if we could use the power of visualization if we're 70, 75, even 60. We just take old Jim Owen's picture and stick that on our mirror and we can look at that every single morning. You talked about this.
Real quickly, Captain, interject, Casey, pardon me.
Yes.
But, and I've for whatever reason, I don't know why, I'm picking up on what you said about motivation. One of my shirts says Geezer Fit, Geezer -Fit. And I'm Geezer Fit. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Am I Navy SEAL fit? Don't be silly. But am I Geezer Fit? For some reason, that makes me laugh. The one I'm wearing right now says 80 years young. So you 80? I said, no, this is aspirational. I want to be 80 years young. And so I wear and when I've already got the T-shirt that I'm going to wear, so I've already made it up when I turn 80. And so I for some reason, I've always been drawn to a T-shirt with something original written on it. And that's been a big source of motivation for me. Isn't that funny? I don't know why.
Well, I think just keeping it in front of you, whatever that goal is or whatever you want to be, keeping that in front of you every single day so you see it, and then you ultimately become it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you said, I have a quote here from you, said, you can't help getting older, but you don't have to get old. To a surprising degree, how quickly
near and dear
is up to us.
That is near and dear to me. You can't help getting older. We all get older, okay? But you don't have to get old. And you'd be surprised. And by the way, you will never hear me say this. It's not in the book. I don't know if all this fitness exercise means you're going to live a day longer. I'm skeptical about that. But you have a higher quality of life. That I can assure you. Mm-hmm. Longer, I'm skeptical. Okay. Well, so, my interest is saying if I'm 78, I want to maintain a quality of life. Okay, is by my definition as long as I can. Now, if that's when I'm 84, okay, did the best I could do. But do I want to live to be 100? Not so sure. That would take. I don't even think about that, to be honest about it.
Well, one of the things I think, we talk about motivation as being one of the obstacles of getting fit, getting in the gym, just getting up and walking around, starting to move, as you would say.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of it comes back to actual pain that people are experiencing. I know you've had some knee problems in the past that have
Oh
probably
boy.
been difficult to get up and get motivated, get
Hmm.
in the gym. You shared a statistic that I found on your blog, I believe it was, or in the book. 80% of all Americans will experience back pain at some point in their life. I
Hmm.
have chronic back pain myself, and I think that
Oh
comes
no,
out of
no. Do you really?
a lot of heavy lifting that I've done
Oh,
over the years.
I,
And my mom has similar issues. My mom has had ongoing pain issues, arthritis, fibromyalgia, back pain, and you know, she goes through massage, she does physical therapy, and it's kept her from doing some of the things that she wants to do. My wife's going to bar class now, and she is always asking
which
mom.
is, I hear that's terrific. I've never
Yeah.
done it. I hear,
And mom goes
eh,
to bar with her, and she's just in constant pain.
wow, my
But she's
God.
canceling a lot of these appointments to go to bar with my wife and spend some valuable time with
Wow.
the family and get in shape and have fun because she's in so much pain. So what
Hmm.
do you think a plan of action would be for someone that is experiencing a lot of pain that's actually kind of keeping them from doing fitness and getting fit?
Well, that you're asking a really key question, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but this may be a good time to talk about something that I'm that's really at the heart of all this thing. Okay, and again, I didn't know any of this stuff when I started off. If somebody had written a book aimed at folks my age, i.e., 70, as opposed to some kid who's 28, here's how to get ripped or something like that, or build, big biceps. But I couldn't find a book, and that's why I wrote this book called Just Move. There are 5, quote, dimensions, to use that term, of, quote, functional fitness. I just want to real quickly, for your listeners, kind of walk you through this, okay?
Please.
One obvious one is, I think the proper name is cardiovascular endurance, but we all call it cardio. So cardio is critical. So, I mean, every doctor would recommend that you do some cardio. What's interesting about this, there's a reason that the doctors are very comfortable talking about cardio. And Casey, you and your listeners are probably not aware of why that is. Well, the answer is there's 30 years, 30 years of statistics on the benefits of cardio. So doctors feel very comfortable recommending, Casey, you and your wife, you and your mother need to do some cardio. They're because of the statistics, are there. Okay. And that can mean walking. It can mean, rowing, but slow cardio is not going to get you there. And that's what a lot of older people do. Well, I spent 60 minutes on the elliptical or on the treadmill. You've got to get your heart rate up for it to really provide the benefits. Okay, so cardio is easy, and most people say, "Why do cardio?" That's enough, right?
I think you've
There's
emphasized using cardio trackers or heart rate trackers as part of that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's so the easy one, and is to track it. Exactly right. So personally, what I've done, I find cardio really, really boring. I have to tell you, but I do it. I do 30 minutes 3 times a week on the treadmill. I do high intensity. I'm not saying everyone else should do that, but I would rather do 30 minutes of high intensity than 60 minutes of slow, go on and on and on. I just find it boring. That's just me, okay? Now, that takes care of cardio, but that alone is not going to work. It's not going to cut it. That's just one dimension. Another one is the core strength and stability. And I didn't know this when I started out. I cannot emphasize enough, Casey, for you and for your mom. If you have a bad back, it's often because your core is weak. That was my problem. Right? Nobody ever told me that. The doctor never told me this. That's the truth. A weak core. And a core is not your six pack. That's what I thought it was. The core is like a band that goes around. It starts in the upper thighs, Casey, and extends through your upper chest. And it's front and back. If your core is weak, the odds are 95% you're going to have back issues. So when I say, you say, Jim, what's the best part, what are you the most proud of? How do you want to say it as far as fitness goes? Well, it's simple. It's the core. I have a very strong core. That's why I have zero back pain. None, because of a strong core. And I've always worked harder on the core than any other part of the body. So if you have tight hips, for example, tight hips, tight ankles, that's what I had. That's what sitting does to you, right? That often leads to a bad back, a weak back. It also leads into a weak core. I know it's complicated stuff, and I don't even want to go there. It's just trust me, weak core is going to result in back issues. And I have friends of mine who I never want to preach to my friends who complain about their backs. Well, do you do any kind of core? No. Well, what's core? I just, I mean, I can't help that person, but that's what it is. The next one would be flexibility.
So far, Jim, you've labeled the three things that I enjoy the least in the gym: stretching, core, and cardio.
Exactly. Thank you. And the flexibility is the worst. So I do 24 stretches. Because Jim, 24? Yeah. Well, can you tell me the best one? I only want the best one. How would I know what's best for you? Your issues are not the same as mine, no likelihood. Okay? What I do is it's kind of a combination of yoga, Pilates, all rolled into movement, Tai Chi into one. So that's what I do. Is it fun? Not really. So I do it with my wife. So we go to the gym together and we do stretching. Okay? And I'm good for about 30 minutes and that's it. Okay? I do it 3 times a week. And then comes balance, which people say balance. Well, here are the statistics. And I bet your mom knows this. The average adult over the age of 65 and over falls once every 3 years. So in any given year, it's unbelievable. If you fall once, the odds are very, very high you're going to fall again. And what's interesting about this is that your balance starts to decline, Casey, when you're in your mid-20s. Say, what? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. The difference is when you're 20 or 30 or 40, you can catch yourself. That's the difference. So let's say you stumble on the rug, okay? You can probably catch yourself if you're 35. Say, whew, man, that was close. Then you straighten out the rug. When you're older, you just can't do that. So when you're older and you trip, you go splat. That's the problem. Or you fall backwards. And I cannot tell you how many people we know at our age who have fallen. And boy, it is not much fun. And people get scared. So balance may take you 5 minutes a day. No more than that. It's just
What's
simple.
that look like, Jim? What would you do specifically for balance?
Okay, it's the most simple thing, and my wife makes me look like a amateurish. So she does it in the kitchen when she's cooking. You stand on one foot. That's all. I'm doing it right now while we're talking. Stand on my right foot, right? You raise your left foot as high as you can. Just hike up your left. I couldn't even do this 6 months ago. I'm really working on balance now. My balance is better. Is it where it should be? Probably not. I'm now on my left foot, raising my right. So I'm raising my other leg as high as I can, and that's the thing. That's all it is. It's just you're brushing your teeth. Okay, so the balance does not take much work. It's just consistently. So if one of your listeners says, "Boy, I'm worried about my balance," Okay. My wife is kind of, wobbly. Well, I'm telling you, 5 minutes a day, no more than 10 at most. In the most simple things, just stand on both feet and walk and put one foot directly in front of the other. You'd be surprised how many people, Casey, cannot do that. I'm doing it right now. I'm walking across the room with one foot in front of the other. It's actually not easy. Okay? That's balance. And the final thing, and this is the most misunderstood part, in my opinion, of exercising, and this is what people just don't want to talk about, and this is the strength, upper and lower body strength. And the reason that you need this, we can talk another hour about this, and I'm not going to do that, but your metabolism slows as you get older. And that's one reason why people gain weight, even if they're eating the same. So somebody who is 30 years old is going to add, on average, about a pound a year going forward. So, well, that's not very much. Oh, yeah? Wait until you're 60. Now you're 30 pounds overweight. You say, I ate the same amount of food I ate when I was 30. Slowing metabolism. And that's what it is. Okay.
And what does your strength training look like, Jim?
Well, it can look different to a lot of people. To me, it doesn't mean lifting heavy.
Well, now I saw a picture of you flipping a tire, and not just any tire, but I believe it was a tractor tire.
I know, and that's because I find it fun. So here's the key. Am I showing off? Yeah, a little bit. But whenever I travel, if I were to go to Fort Wayne tomorrow, let's say, right? And for whatever reason, you and I were doing something, an event, we'll say, right? I would say to somebody, who's the best trainer in Fort Wayne? There's always somebody. Oh, it's so-and-so. I want to work out with them. And that's how I've learned. I've learned from working out with some of the best trainers in the country, literally. L.A., New York, Miami. So whenever I travel with Cowboy Ethics, in recent years, I would, we're in Miami, who's the best trainer? And I work out with them, and that's how I learn. And for whatever reason now, let me make this very, very clear. What I do with these trainers, I would not want to do, nor could I do every day. It's just that once a month, Casey, I love being what I call tested. And so what I have fun. If it's often women are much, much better than men at training. It's been my experience. Mm-hmm. If it's a woman, I always say to her with a straight face, I look at her and I say, this is not going to be some girly workout, is it? With a straight face. And knives come out. And they'll say, I'll show you. I can just tell. Look at her
that
face.
Was said with intention.
Show you, girly. I did this to this gal in Scottsdale, who turns out she was an American Ninja regional finalist. And she kicked my butt, and I've never laughed as hard. She's the one who put on boxing gloves. It's on the website. And she said, have you ever boxed? I said, no, not really. She said, well, we're going to box. And she hit me in the face. She said, hit me back. I said, my dad said, don't hit a girl. Your dad said, what? I said, don't hit a girl. And she hit me in the face with an uppercut. And I said, well, are you crazy? She said, I said, hit me. I tried to hit her. She ducked, hit me in the stomach. I said, oh, my gosh. She's an American Ninja. And I laughed till we almost cried. She said, how many push-ups can you do? I said, more than you can. You want to make a bet? I said, what can you do? She said, I can do 75. I said, no. You want to see? Where's your money? I said, okay, $1 or something like that. I got to 50 and collapsed because it's at the end of the workout. And she said, that's all you can do? What's wrong with you? And then we finished and laughed. And she said, Jim, hang around for a little while, can you? I said, sure. Her next client came in. He was 65. And she said to her client, she said, Jim, this is my oldest client. This is Nick or someone named like that. And she said, Nick, I had the best workout I've had in a long time. Jim is 10 years older than you are. and you wouldn't believe what he could do. And I just laughed, and she laughed, and she was on the cover of some, Scottsdale Fit magazine. And we just laughed. So Eliza's having fun. So when I do this, I have fun. And she's the one that introduced me to the tires and boxing and all kinds of stuff. But that's not every day. That's once a month.
Sure.
And so I have a blast. And people say, do you do it every day? I couldn't do it every day, number one. But I do it and I have fun and just laugh. So I like being, quote, tested. Just like saying, okay, Jim, I read your book and it looks like you're in pretty good shape. I said, yeah, for an old geezer. Well, let's see what you got. And I said, well, I'll tell you one thing. Whatever I got, you're going to get my best. And that's my attitude. I walk in the gym and I say, there's three things. I'll make this real fast, Casey. There's three things that you need. You need focus, and that is turn the TV off, leave your cell phone in the locker, focus on what you're doing, which is critical, okay? So my mind is not wandering around when I work out, okay? Number two is form. You've got to work on your form. It's a moving target. So you don't get good form in a month or even 6 months. It's probably, I'm still working on my form. I may have good form doing one exercise, not so good doing something else. And the last is effort. And what I learned a long time ago is I can walk into any gym in the country and work with any trainer. All they expect is I'm giving it my best. That's all they ask. They don't ask, Jim, how much can you deadlift? Nobody cares. Like a golf score. All they care is Jim giving it his best. And I guarantee you, when I give it my best every single time. Now, my best may not be the same day to day. When you get older, you have low energy. We call them low volume days, low energy days. Sure. That was Wednesday. For whatever reason, had a little cough of some kind. I don't know why. So it wasn't the best work. Doesn't matter. I did the best I could with what I've got. And that's the message I want to pass on to your listeners, is give it whatever you've got every time you work out. If you do, I promise you'll be amazed at what you can do. So don't go in, well, I don't even want to be here, but my husband or my wife says I need to do this. You'll never stick with it. You've got to be self-motivated to do this stuff. And then just have fun. So I have fun working out with my wife. I have fun, working out with other trainers. But then I always go back to my primary trainer. And he's the guy that, started me on this journey, and we still work out. This will be 8 years with him next March.
Well, Jim, I love those
I've done a lot of talking, but those are the five. And so the mistake people make is, well, I don't think I really need strength training. Well, if you're a woman, okay, most women have got bones that as they get older, osteoporosis. That's what happens to you. So you got it, but we're not talking about lifting heavy. Okay, we're talking about lifting. I lift the most. I do dumbbells, for example. I do a lot of TRX, a lot of dumbbells, sandbags. I like mixing it up. Okay, but what I don't do, I would never put a barbell on my back. You couldn't pay me to do that. A lot of machines I would never use. Why? Because the repetitive nature it's just not good for your shoulder, for example. So I like dumbbells, free weights. I love body weight stuff. So what I do is body weight, push-ups. Okay.
Well, Jim, I love those
stuff.
5 core things. Cardio, core, flexibility, balance, strength. I think you've motivated me here, and you're going to have me doing a little bit more cardio, core, and flexibility, which I know that I'm lacking in. But as we run out of time here, I really want to ask you one last question, and this doesn't have anything to do with fitness necessarily, but I'm curious what your answer would be as you talked about financial independence that you reached here 10 or so years ago, and you've been retired for quite some time, and I'm wondering how would you define retirement?
Oh boy. Well, I define retirement probably different. It's a wonderful question that you're asking. It's really profound, okay? Like most people, I did what I had to do in terms of business, okay, to make a living for my family, that stuff, okay? The truth is, I've never been a financial guy. I did it, but it's not. At heart, I'm a creative guy. And that's where I get my jollies, is creating something out of nothing. And that's why I live by the motto. My own mantra is create, don't compete. Okay? And so I love creating stuff. And what the retirement's meant for me is I can finally do what I'm good at doing. I was a rainmaker. That's what I did. I could always communicate to clients, could always communicate to boards of directors and that kind of stuff. Okay? And that's more art than science. That's what I was good at. Okay? A lot of guys in the back office they can actually pick stocks a lot, but I thought it was kind of boring myself. But the point I'm trying to make is that we all have careers, and that comes first, along with your family and your faith. That comes first. The good thing is when you're a little bit older, if you've saved and been successful investing your money, at some point okay, now I'm ready for a quote, a new life. It's like new life, new me. And you can finally do sort of what you were put on this earth to do. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing what gives me a degree of satisfaction that the business world never could be. When somebody says, Jim, I got a deal I want you to look at. I said, please don't talk to me about business deals. It's so boring. There's always something else, okay? Let's talk about meditation. Let's talk about this. I don't want to talk about deals. Look at the spreadsheet. What? A spreadsheet. I wouldn't spend 2 minutes looking at that stuff. So I live, and there's a term that people use who are creative, and it's we all of us have a trait if you're creative. Okay, you know what the trait is? It's called restlessness. I'm not even sure if it's even a word. But if you ever meet someone, if you ever meet Tom Selleck or Michael Douglas, these guys all live out, in Santa Barbara. None of them want to talk about the movies that you want to talk about. Not one of them. Their interest is in the next project. And that's the way I am. I thought, that's kind of nice talk. No, I'm more saying what I'm doing next. And what I'm doing next is the art of aging well. And that's where I get my kicks from. It's not, do I enjoy Cowboy Ethics? Yeah, I suppose so. But not really. I mean, I've done that, been there for 10 years. It's that restlessness that all creative people have in common. It's what is your next project. If you ever meet a movie star and you throw in whatever reason next to them, just say, do you have a project that you're working on? And you'll see their eyes light up. They'll say, yeah, I've been working on this project for 5 years. I can't get the financing, but it's so near and dear to me. And that's what every creative person has. So for me, I'm doing a documentary. I've already done one with Cowboy Ethics. It was very successful. And I'm calling it the art of aging well. So it's not the art of getting fit, it's aging well, which implies it's a lot more to this than simply exercising or working out or going to the gym and that kind of stuff. It's beyond that. And let me close by saying one thing. Having a purpose is a critical part of this. I think of it as a pyramid. The foundation is fitness, okay? The ultimate to me is that purpose, is that people who are like your mom, who are older, who have a purpose, seem to live happier and more satisfied lives. It's absolutely true. Everyone I know who is, quote, aging well has got, now, it may be different purposes, sure, but they're doing something that makes them hop out of bed in the morning with excitement that they look forward to, as opposed to being withdrawn, lonely, looking inward. My life is over. My health is terrible. And that is that negativity that we associate with older people. It doesn't have to be that way. So you can take control of the aging process. You'll be surprised, okay? And the place to start, in my opinion, is getting off the couch, just walking, doing some stretching, and gradually over time, adding to it these other, what I call dimensions, okay? But you don't need a gym membership. You don't need a personal trainer. I enjoy strength training. I enjoy it. It's like my inner athlete. I missed when I was a kid. I was a overweight, kind of clumsy guy. Did I let her in, football? Sure. Was I elite? No. Never got over it not being a better athlete, a competitive athlete. I wasn't. Just average kid. But now I enjoy the competition, if you will, of what I'm doing in the gym against myself, not somebody else, against myself. It's just in a personal best. Okay? So it's the purpose that keeps me going, keeps me young, and I'm really honored and proud that you would have me on your program. And I think what you're doing, Casey, is just terrific. I really do. So
Jim,
we've talked a long time. I don't want to wear my welcome out, but you've been wonderful.
No, absolutely.
I didn't talk too much.
You are the epitome of retiring with purpose. You're obviously, a model for so many people that want to age well. You're passing on tremendous wisdom onto the next generation. And I really appreciate you coming here onto the show. If you want to catch up with Jim, if you want to connect with Jim or get his book, Just Move, which is just a fantastic book. If you're, say, new to fitness or if you're over the age of 50 and you're trying to figure out where to get started, just go to justmoveforlife.com, and pick up a copy of his book. Jim, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Casey, thank you so very much. It's been an honor, believe me. Thank you. I'm really humbled. Thank you.
We'll catch you next time right here on Retire with Purpose.